The Ritzman Hotel's grand entrance was filled with the buzz of activity, a haven for the city's elite. Inside, the lobby was decorated with marble floors that gleamed under the chandeliers, the perfect environment for Victoria Hargrove, a socialite accustomed to luxury and status. She walked through the lobby, her heels clicking with purpose as she greeted a few familiar faces with a smile that could have been mistaken for warmth, but it was all a part of her world of appearances. Today, she was meeting her friends for an afternoon of gossip and indulgence, her confidence radiating with every step. As she walked toward the reception, a black man in a sharp navy suit, his presence quiet yet commanding, accidentally bumped into her. His leather wallet fell from his hand, sliding near her designer heels. Victoria glanced down at the wallet, her expression immediately turning to one of distaste. Without a second thought, she glared at him, her voice dripping with superiority as she scoffed, "Watch where you're going, sir." The man, calm and composed, bent down to retrieve his wallet, but before he could pick it up, Victoria flicked it aside with the tip of her pointed heel, making it land under a nearby trash can. With a smirk, she said, "People like you shouldn't be carrying wallets that nice anyway." Her words were met with hushed laughter from the nearby guests, who found amusement in her cruel treatment of the man. He, however, remained silent. He calmly picked up the wallet, dusted it off, and with a nod, walked away without another word. Later that evening, as Victoria relaxed in her penthouse, sipping on a glass of wine, a breaking news alert flashed on her TV screen. It caught her attention, and she absently picked up the remote, not expecting what she was about to see. The screen lit up with bold red letters. Breaking news: billionaire Marcus Williams acquires the Ritzman Hotel in landmark deal. Her wineglass wobbled in her hand as she watched the man she had mocked earlier step up to a podium on the screen. It was Marcus Williams, the same man she had discarded like trash. Her stomach dropped. The same man she had humiliated was now in control of the very hotel she stood in earlier that day. The news anchor's voice droned on, announcing Marcus's vast wealth and accomplishments, including his recent acquisition of the Ritzman Hotel. His name echoed in Victoria's ears, and it became clear. He wasn't just any man, he was a billionaire. Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. She had treated him like an insignificant nobody when, in reality, he was more powerful and wealthier than she could ever dream of. She quickly pulled out her phone to check her messages. Friends, acquaintances, and socialites were already texting her, all horrified by what she had done. The next morning, Victoria, in a panic, rushed back to the Ritzman Hotel, desperate to make amends. She entered the lobby, hoping for a chance to apologize, but it wasn't that simple. There, standing near the elevator, was Marcus, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, talking to hotel executives. The reality hit her like a ton of bricks. He wasn't just someone she had disrespected. He was now in charge of the hotel she had been so proud to frequent. As their eyes met, Marcus's lips curled into a knowing smile. He glanced her way with a touch of amusement and said, "Ah, Ms. Hargrove, I believe you work here? Not for much longer." Victoria froze. She opened her mouth to speak, to apologize, but the words wouldn't come. Her whole body felt cold. There she stood, exposed for her arrogance and cruelty, while Marcus stood before her, in control of everything. The executives around him continued their conversation as if she no longer existed. The silence between them stretched long, and she realized with a sinking feeling that she had made an irreversible mistake. Victoria Hargrove, the epitome of wealth and privilege, stepped out of the high-end boutique, her designer heels clicking against the pavement in rhythmic precision. As she exited, her head held high and her bags carefully tucked under her arm, she nearly tripped over a homeless man sitting near the entrance, his hand outstretched in a silent plea for help. "Ugh! Get out of my way, filthy man!" Victoria snapped, her voice dripping with disdain. She barely spared him a glance as she stepped around him, avoiding his gaze as though he were invisible. However, something on the ground caught her eye as she continued on her way. There, lying next to the homeless man, was a black leather wallet. Victoria paused, her curiosity piqued. "Wait, this is yours?" she asked, eyeing the wallet with suspicion. The homeless man, looking up at her with a weary face, nodded. "Yes, ma'am. It's mine." Victoria scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please. You probably stole it." She bent down and snatched the wallet from the ground. Her fingers brushed over its smooth leather surface before opening it to inspect its contents. As she flipped through the wallet, she froze. Her eyes landed on a platinum credit card with the name Marcus Williams emblazoned in gold letters. Victoria's laughter filled the air, sharp and mocking. "Marcus Williams? You expect me to believe that?" She scoffed, the incredulity in her voice unmistakable. Without hesitation, she tossed the wallet aside, her fingers twitching in disgust. She marched over to a nearby sewer grate, flung the wallet toward it, and watched it disappear into the darkness below. The homeless man, looking on with quiet dignity, didn't say a word. He simply picked himself up and shuffled away, leaving Victoria to bask in the shallow satisfaction of her cruelty. The next day, Victoria sat at a luxurious high-end restaurant, the soft glow of the chandeliers above casting a warm light on the polished marble floors. Her meal had been delightful, but the entertainment for the evening was just beginning. As she sipped her wine, the TV screen behind the bar flashed with a breaking news banner. The voice of the news anchor rang out, "Breaking: billionaire Marcus Williams donates $10 million to homeless shelters, reveals he's been undercover studying poverty firsthand." Victoria's heart skipped a beat as the camera zoomed in on the face of the man she had so callously dismissed the day before. The same homeless man, the one she had mocked and belittled, was now smiling confidently from the screen. His sharp suit and poised demeanor made him look entirely different from the filthy man she had dismissed on the street. Marcus Williams, the same name she had so carelessly scoffed at. She choked on her wine as she stared, wide-eyed at the screen, her mind racing. "No way," she muttered under her breath, still not entirely believing what she was seeing. The restaurant owner, who had been standing nearby, walked over to her table with a big smile. "Oh, you'll love this. Mr. Williams is the new investor here," he said enthusiastically. "He'll be dining with us shortly." Victoria's face drained of color. She froze. Her mind raced, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in. The man she had mocked, the man she had treated with utter disdain, was now a billionaire, someone who could own the restaurant she sat in, someone with influence and power far beyond her comprehension. And worse, he was now a partner in the very place she was dining. Her body stiffened as she sat frozen in her chair, feeling the weight of her actions crashing down on her. She had thrown away the wallet of Marcus Williams, thinking him to be nothing more than a lowly homeless man. But now she realized the truth. She had made a grave mistake. As the restaurant owner turned and walked away, Victoria couldn't bring herself to look at him. Her hands trembled slightly, the realization that her words and actions had just come back to haunt her sinking in with every passing second. The door opened, and in walked Marcus Williams himself, dressed immaculately, exuding confidence and power. His eyes briefly met hers as he entered, a subtle smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Victoria's stomach churned. She couldn't escape the weight of her humiliation. She had dismissed him as insignificant, mocked him for his supposed lack of wealth, and now he was more successful than she could ever hope to be. Marcus approached the table, his eyes meeting hers with quiet amusement. "Ah, Ms. Hargrove, it's a pleasure to see you again," he said, his tone calm but laced with a quiet authority. Victoria could hardly find her voice, her mind still spinning from the shock of the revelation. "Quite a twist, isn't it?" Marcus continued, his smirk never fading. Funny how things work out. You never know who you're dealing with. As he walked away, heading toward his reserved table in the back of the restaurant, Victoria was left to contemplate the lesson she had just learned. The hard way. At the grand charity gala, the ballroom gleamed with luxury. Elegant gowns swirled around the floor as tuxedoed men mingled, glasses of champagne held high. The air was thick with polite chatter and the soft hum of violins in the background. At the center of it all, Victoria Hargrove, dripping in diamonds and designer brands, floated through the crowd with an air of superiority. She was used to being the center of attention, the queen of the social scene. As she navigated the room, her high heels clicking against the marble floor, she accidentally bumped into someone. Victoria's eyes narrowed, irritated, as she looked up to see who had dared to interrupt her. Marcus Williams, the man she'd mocked in the past, stood there with a calm expression. His navy suit was tailored perfectly, and his presence was confident, but still humble. It was clear to anyone who had an eye for detail that he was no ordinary man. "Watch it!" Victoria snapped, rolling her eyes. "You don't look like you belong here." Marcus glanced down at her, unbothered, as she looked down at the floor. His wallet had slipped from his pocket and landed at her feet. Without hesitation, she bent down and picked it up, inspecting it as if it were some kind of joke. She examined the wallet, flipping it open with a chuckle. "Fake money, I bet," Victoria said with a wicked grin. She didn't even check the ID or the contents. To her, this was a game, something to mock and dismiss. With a cruel smirk, she flung the wallet into the nearby champagne bucket filled with ice. Laughter erupted around her as the guests watched, some even joining in on the mockery. The room seemed to shake with laughter, but Marcus remained stoic. He said nothing, choosing instead to simply turn and walk away. Victoria beamed, basking in the attention. Her heart swelled with satisfaction, believing she had just made a fool of the man she thought was insignificant. An hour later, the event had grown louder with excitement as the host tapped the microphone, signaling a transition in the evening's proceedings. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest of honor and keynote speaker, Mr. Marcus Williams," the host announced, his voice booming through the microphone. Victoria's blood ran cold. Her glass of champagne trembled in her hand as her mind tried to process the announcement. She felt her throat tighten, and her face went pale. The crowd erupted into applause, but all Victoria could hear was the deafening pounding of her heart. The man she had humiliated, the man she had tossed aside as nothing, was the guest of honor, the keynote speaker. Victoria's mind raced as she watched Marcus take the stage, his presence commanding the room. He exuded authority and grace, and the applause for him was thunderous. It was impossible for her to ignore the fact that he was the one who had made it this far, the one who had earned the respect and admiration of all those around him. As he took the podium and began his speech, his eyes scanned the room. And then, they met hers. He didn't say a word, but the silent message was clear. He lifted his champagne glass in her direction, the same one where she had carelessly dumped his wallet. The irony was crushing. Victoria felt her face burn with humiliation. She had no idea who she had been dealing with. She had treated him like dirt, laughing at his expense, not knowing that he was the very person everyone had been waiting for. The true weight of her actions hit her like a ton of bricks, but there was no escape now. The moment of karma had arrived. Her pride, her smugness, all of it had come crashing down in a single glance. There was no way to undo what she had done. As Marcus continued speaking, Victoria's mind swirled with regret. The applause for him filled her ears, but it only made her feel smaller. She had been so quick to dismiss him, so ready to ridicule him, and now she had nothing to show for it but a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach. Victoria walked into the high-end jewelry store, her heels clicking on the polished floor. The store was everything she expected: opulent, with rows of sparkling diamonds and watches, each one more extravagant than the last. She strutted past the displays, nodding at the store employees, her nose in the air and her mind already on the perfect piece to add to her collection. As she turned a corner, she saw him, Marcus Williams, standing near the watch counter, inspecting a luxury timepiece with calm precision. The last time she'd seen him, he was the nobody who had dared to question her social status. She hadn't thought much of him then, but now, standing in this expensive store, he was simply another person who didn't belong in her world. Without a second thought, she approached him, smiling arrogantly. Victoria, grinning. "Oops! You should be more careful." She deliberately bumped into Marcus, causing the wallet he had been holding to fall out of his hand. Without missing a beat, she smacked it away, making sure it slid across the counter with an exaggerated motion, as if it were nothing more than trash. A few customers glanced over, but she paid them no mind. She wasn't the one who needed to worry. Marcus was. The store owner, a nervous-looking man in his 50s, rushed over to help Marcus. Store owner, uncertain. "Sir, I apologize. Let me get that for you." Marcus, unfazed, bent down to pick up the wallet, but Victoria interrupted before he could say anything. Victoria, disdainfully. "Let's not waste time with people who can't afford to be here. We have real customers waiting." The store owner, clearly uncomfortable, didn't argue, but stepped back. Marcus simply gave Victoria a look of indifference, silently accepting the situation as she walked away, her heels echoing through the store. Later that night, Victoria attended a business investors' dinner at one of the most luxurious venues in the city. The event was meant to celebrate new investments and board members, and Victoria had made sure to dress in her finest attire, prepared to charm the wealthy investors. As she mingled with the crowd, sipping champagne and engaging in light conversation, the host stepped up to the microphone, signaling the start of the evening's announcements. Host, excitedly, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have an exciting new addition to our board tonight. Please join me in welcoming the newest board member, Marcus Williams." Victoria froze. The champagne in her glass seemed to evaporate from her hand as she processed the name. Her heart skipped a beat as she turned toward the head table. There, sitting with the most influential people in the room, was Marcus Williams, looking every bit the part of a high-powered businessman. His presence commanded attention as he smiled graciously and raised his glass to acknowledge the applause. Victoria's face drained of color. She knew she had to act quickly, but her pride was too much to swallow. She couldn't just stand there. She had to apologize. And fast. With a forced smile, she made her way over to Marcus's table, doing her best to compose herself. Victoria, feigning friendliness. "Oh, Mr. Williams, about earlier I was just joking." Marcus's eyes met hers, and he gave her a polite smile that barely touched his eyes. Marcus, calmly, "Oh, I understand, Ms. Hargrove. Just like I joked about considering your business proposal?" Victoria's face went pale, and she choked on the sip of water she'd just taken. Her mind reeled as the words sank in. He knew. He had known exactly who she was the entire time. He hadn't even flinched when she mocked him. He had been playing her all along. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his smile widening just slightly, but there was no warmth in it. Marcus, smiling coldly. "You see, Ms. Hargrove, I understand the value of a well-placed joke. Don't you?" The air in the room seemed to freeze as Victoria's face flushed with humiliation. She stood there, unable to say another word, as Marcus's calm demeanor and cutting words echoed in her mind. As he raised his glass to the others at the table, Victoria couldn't help but feel the full weight of her actions crashing down on her. She had underestimated him, belittled him, and now she had to live with the consequences. In that moment, the reality of who Marcus was and what he had accomplished hit her like a tidal wave. There would be no fixing this, and no apology would ever be enough. The rest of the evening played out in a blur for Victoria as she tried and failed to escape the crushing realization that she had just embarrassed herself in front of one of the most powerful people in the room. Victoria woke up to the bright morning sun shining through her expensive curtains, a slight smile on her face as she stretched out and grabbed her phone from the nightstand. She checked her notifications casually, thinking of what to wear for the day or the meeting she had scheduled. However, the moment she unlocked her phone, her smile vanished. The screen was flooded with text messages, notifications, and social media alerts. None of them were good. Her eyes quickly scanned the first few messages. Charlotte, text. Vic, what the hell is going on? Turn on the news. Olivia, text. Your video is everywhere. Brittany, text. You need to see this, it's all over social media. She was confused at first, but as she scrolled through her phone, the reality of the situation hit her. The top headline on her social media feed was a video titled, Rich Woman Humiliates CEO Not Knowing Who He Is. The thumbnail showed her in the luxury store, mocking Marcus, throwing his wallet into the trash and stepping away as though it meant nothing. A short clip from the security footage followed, showing the moment she flicked his wallet away like it was trash, followed by her dismissive words. The video was already racking up millions of views. Victoria's heart sank. She felt the weight of every comment and tweet that followed. Comment 1. So classy. Throwing a man's wallet like it's garbage. Must be nice to think you're better than people. Comment 2. Wow, that's messed up. Turns out she disrespected a billionaire CEO without even knowing. Comment 3. Here's to karma. I hope she gets exactly what she deserves. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications. Each message from someone who had seen the video, each comment more damning than the last. Victoria felt her chest tighten as she sat up on her bed, realizing what had happened. The mockery and disdain she had shown Marcus had been captured, and now millions of people were watching it unfold. In the midst of her shock, Victoria's phone pinged again. This time, it was a tweet notification from none other than Marcus himself. Marcus. Character is revealed when no one's watching. Glad the world is watching now. The words cut through Victoria's panic like a knife. The tweet was calm, collected, and devastating. He was right. His character was revealed. And now, so was hers. She had embarrassed herself publicly, not knowing that she had just mocked one of the most influential people in the world. Her hands shook as she stared at her phone screen. The comments on his tweet were pouring in. Tweet 1. Wow, no one deserves to be treated like that. This is beyond humiliating for her. Tweet 2. Karma is real. I can't believe she thought she could get away with that. Tweet 3. Marcus Williams shows true class. As for her, not so much. As she sat there, helpless and defeated, she could hear her phone buzz incessantly. Friends and colleagues were reaching out to her, either to offer sympathy or to express their shock at her behavior. But there was nothing they could say to undo the damage she had done. Victoria paced around her penthouse, her eyes glued to her phone as the viral video spread further. The humiliation was unbearable. Her reputation, once pristine and untouchable, was crumbling before her eyes. The thought of facing her peers or clients was out of the question. She had lost everything in an instant. Her phone buzzed again, but this time, it was a notification from one of her social media accounts. Your post has been flagged. Violation of community guidelines. Victoria's face went pale. Her accounts were being reported. She had become a target for ridicule, and there was no escaping it. With a trembling hand, she opened her settings and deleted her social media accounts, one by one, as if erasing the evidence would somehow make everything disappear. But it didn't. The damage had been done. The next day, Marcus's tweet was still trending, and the video continued to circulate. Victoria had nowhere to hide. The online community had turned against her, and all she could do was watch from the sidelines as her life spiraled. As the days passed, Victoria's name became synonymous with the word embarrassment. The rich socialite, who had once been at the top of the social ladder, was now the subject of scorn and ridicule. Marcus, on the other hand, had risen higher. His tweet was praised as a masterclass in class and maturity. People saw his grace under pressure, while Victoria's true colors were exposed for the world to see. She had thought she could humiliate someone and get away with it, but in the end, it was she who had been humiliated. Victoria sat in her penthouse, staring at the empty space where her social media accounts had once been. She felt the weight of the lesson she had learned, the hard way, and she knew that no matter how many times she tried to erase her mistake, it would follow her forever. Her eyes wandered to the news on the television. Marcus Williams, the man she had so arrogantly dismissed, was now being hailed as a hero. The same people who once applauded her were now singing his praises. The realization hit her. She had underestimated him, and now she was left with nothing but the bitter taste of regret. As the camera panned to Marcus at an event, smiling and confident, Victoria knew there was nothing she could do to fix what had happened. Marcus walked into the bank with a confident stride, his sharp suit a stark contrast to the otherwise mundane setting. The lobby was bustling with employees and customers, but all of them seemed unaware of the storm that was about to hit. He casually fumbled with his wallet, letting it fall to the ground in front of the receptionist's desk. The sound echoed through the space. Victoria, a manager at the bank, looked up from her paperwork, unimpressed by the disruption. She saw the wallet lying on the floor and rolled her eyes, clearly irritated by the inconvenience. Without even thinking, she reached down, grabbed the wallet, and flicked it into the trash can with a nonchalant swipe of her hand. Victoria, scoffing. "Seriously, what a mess," she muttered, walking back to her desk, not giving the incident another thought. Little did she know, the man she had so carelessly dismissed wasn't just a passerby. He wasn't nobody, as she had assumed. Marcus Williams, the billionaire entrepreneur and tech mogul, was standing right there, watching her. He stood for a moment, taking in the scene with a knowing look. The disrespect was palpable, but he remained composed, picking up his wallet from the trash can before leaving the bank without saying a word. The next day, Victoria walked into work, expecting another typical day in the bank. The morning passed uneventfully until an announcement came over the PA system. PA system. "Attention all employees, please make your way to the lobby. We have an important announcement to make." Victoria looked around, puzzled, and walked to the lobby along with her colleagues. A well-dressed man stepped up to the podium. It was Marcus Williams, and he wasn't just here for a visit. He was here to announce something huge. Marcus, smiling. "Good morning. I'm Marcus Williams, and I've just finalized the acquisition of this bank. From now on, I will be your new owner." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at Marcus, shocked and confused. Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. The man she had dismissed just the day before, the man she had thrown his wallet into the trash, was now her boss. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Victoria's mind raced as Marcus continued to speak, outlining his plans to take the bank in a new direction, offering better services, and putting more emphasis on customer satisfaction. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. But the worst part? She knew exactly how she had treated him, and she knew that this was only the beginning of her downfall. Later that day, Victoria received a termination letter. Her hands trembled as she read through the details. Her behavior had been deemed unprofessional, and her actions had violated the company's core values. She was immediately let go. Shocked and flustered, she rushed to the new director's office to beg for a second chance. Victoria knocked nervously before pushing the door open, only to freeze when she saw who was sitting behind the desk. There, in the plush chair, was Marcus, the same man she had humiliated the day before. He was relaxed, leaning back with a smug smile on his face, clearly enjoying the moment. Marcus, grinning. "Oh, hi, Victoria." Didn't expect to see you here." Victoria's face went pale. The irony of it all was suffocating. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words failed her. She had no excuses, no way to justify her actions. The man she had dismissed without a second thought now had all the power. And here she was, standing in front of him, utterly humiliated. Marcus, calmly, "I'm sorry, Victoria, but your services are no longer needed. You've made quite the impression, though, just not the kind you were hoping for." Victoria could feel the weight of the situation crashing down on her. The humiliation was complete. Marcus had not only bought the bank, but had also shown her just how wrong she had been. The people she had thought were beneath her were now the ones in charge, and there was nothing she could do to reverse the damage. The look on her face was priceless. She was left standing there, helpless, as Marcus leaned back in his chair, enjoying every moment of the karmic justice unfolding before him. Marcus, smiling, "Goodbye, Victoria. I hope you've learned something today." Victoria walked out of the office, the weight of her own arrogance crushing her. She had been given a lesson in humility, and she knew that the memory of this moment would haunt her for a long time. In that moment, Marcus had not only taken over the bank, he had also taken back the power she had so carelessly tried to take from him. And Victoria, for the first time, felt what it was like to be on the other side of the coin. At a lavish charity gala, Victoria Hargrove, dressed in her finest gown, mingled with the city's elite. The ballroom sparkled with gold chandeliers, the guests' laughter ringing in the air as expensive champagne flowed freely. The evening was everything Victoria loved: luxury, exclusivity, and her position at the top of the social ladder. She made her way through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries with old friends, when she spotted a man standing alone near the stage. It was Marcus Williams, the man she had so thoroughly dismissed in the past. Today, he was dressed in a simple yet sharp suit, looking like he belonged, though Victoria didn't think so. As she walked by him, Victoria turned her head with a look of disdain. She was too important to waste time on people like him. He extended his hand with a polite smile. Marcus, grinning, "Good evening, Ms. Hargrove. A pleasure to meet you." Victoria glanced at his hand, scoffing. She chose not to take it. Victoria, coldly, "I don't shake hands with just anyone." Marcus nodded politely, not fazed by her rejection. He stood there, still smiling, as she turned her back to walk away. The evening continued, and Victoria got lost in the luxury of the event, but a few minutes later, the host stepped up to the podium to announce the evening's biggest donor. Host, with enthusiasm, "Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to our most generous contributor of the night, Mr. Marcus Williams." Victoria's heart dropped. Her jaw hung open as Marcus stood and took the stage. The applause grew louder as he walked confidently to the microphone, giving a wave to the crowd. Marcus, with a warm smile, "Thank you, everyone. I'm proud to support this cause tonight. I'll be making a donation to the charity, but I'd like to direct it in a very special way." Victoria, standing in shock, barely heard the rest of his words. Her mind was still spinning. Marcus, smiling slyly, "In honor of the incredible work done by our community, I'm pleased to make this donation under the name of my rival in this space, Ms. Victoria Hargrove." The crowd murmured. Some chuckled. Others looked confused. Victoria's face flushed red with embarrassment as Marcus smiled at her from across the room, her snub now publicly returned. The charity gala had gone from her triumph to her humiliation in mere moments, all thanks to the very man she had rejected. As she stood there, frozen, the realization hit her hard. Her arrogance had cost her in the most public way possible. Marcus had turned the tables, leaving her to face the consequences of her own disdain.